This video is a sample from the Secret Guitar Teacher Interactive course, The 5 Main Elements of Music. The 5 main elements of music. Element number 2, scales. Section 2.4, the major blues scale. Part 2, superimposing the cage system. Explanation. Another way to make practical sense of the relationship between the minor and major blues scales is to superimpose the octave patterns from the caged system on the overall pattern that the scales make on the fretboard. Here's our diagram of the whole pattern. Notice that this is a floating diagram. We haven't labelled any fret numbers, nor have we specified where the nut is. We don't need to do this because what we're going into here is something that works universally in any key. Let's dive in and look at this in a step-by-step way, starting with the first position blues scale pattern. Let's pick fret 5 as our starting point. Now, from earlier lessons, we know that the note under our first finger on the 6th string in this position is our key note if we're going to play the first position of the minor blues scales. And we know that if we're drilling the cage system of octave patterns starting with this finger on this string, we would be using the E-shaped octave pattern that is played like this. So in this lesson, we're going simply to play up and down the blues scale position, but giving a strong degree of accentuation to the notes from this octave pattern. Notice how this helps us hear the pattern as the minor blues scale. Also notice that as well as 2 complete octaves of the scale, this drill shows up the fact that we have 1 note spare, effectively from the next octave up, in this case the C note at fret 8. We make sure we include this note, but the accentuation trick really shows up that it is extra to the 2 octaves forming the main part of the position. Now we're going to apply the pinky trick, but in the opposite way to which we first showed you in the section intro video. We're going to measure from our index finger at the start of the position 3 frets up to up the 6th string to find the note we would normally play using the pinky. In this position, this will always be the key note for the major blues scale. If we think about our cage system drill and we wanted to play up an octave from this note without going outside this first position pattern, we would be forced to use the backward diagonal. And I hope you will immediately recognise this as part of the G shape from the cage system. So that tells us that to find the major blues scale key notes in this position, we need to superimpose the G-shaped octave pattern from the cage system. So let's play the same first position pattern, but this time giving rhythmic emphasis to the notes from the G-shaped octave pattern, like this. Can you hear that we're now playing the major blues scale? Notice that we again have two complete octaves of the scale. Plus one spare note, this time from the octave below. Again, it's important to include this note, but use of the accentuation of the keynotes makes it clear that it is a remnant. So that is a very detailed explanation of this drill as applied to the first position. Now let's take the idea up to the next position. For the sake of simplicity, we'll stick with the same two keys, A minor and C major. So let's play the second position pattern, starting on the 6th string at fret 8. Now let's think back to the cage system octave pattern that we used to accentuate the key notes for the minor blues scale in the first position. That was the E shape. Now as we've moved up a position, let's apply the next letter of the word caged and play the D shape. So we play through the second position pattern, accentuating the key notes given to us by the D-shaped octave pattern, like this. Notice that this time we only have one complete octave, plus a couple of notes from the octave above, and 4 notes from the octave below. It's also important to observe that the lower part of this position misses out a note. This note here at fret 6 on the 5th string. Strictly speaking, we should be including that note, but it is left out when we learn and drill these positions simply because it makes for very awkward fingering. Now, let's use this same position to play the major blues scale. You will recall that we superimposed the G shape just now when we played over the first position. So this time we simply move up to the next letter of the word caged and use the E shape. And I'm going to include the missing note as well to give us a better sense of this. So you can see this gives us 2 complete octaves. Plus 1 extra note on the top string there that effectively comes from the next octave. You can also hear how it does sound right if I include that note, and it doesn't sound quite right if I don't. Finally, notice that the omitted note is the same actual note as was omitted from the blues scale. Moving on in a similar manner, we can move up to the 3rd position and superimpose the C-shaped octave pattern for our minor blues scales. And you'll notice we've got 1 complete octave plus 4 notes at the top and 4 notes at the bottom. You'll also notice it sounds better if we add in this missing note here, which again we leave out when we drill the pattern simply because it's awkward to finger. For the major blues scale, we would use the D-shaped pattern, and again, sounds better if we include that omitted note. And we've got 4 spare notes at the bottom, 5 at the bottom. And 3 at the top. On up to the 4th position. For the minor blues scale, we're going to superimpose the A shape. So that gives us 2 remnant notes at the bottom. 1 complete octave. And 4, or strictly speaking 5 remnant notes at the top. Because we're going to include this one here that we normally omit. Oops. And then for the major blues scale, we're superimposing the C shape. And again, you see a couple of remnant notes, well, 3 at the bottom. And 4 at the top. including the one that we normally omit. Finally, for the fifth position, we superimpose the G shape for the blues scale, the minor blues scale. And you'll notice that we've got two complete octaves, including this extra note that we put in here. No remnants at the top. One note as a remnant at the bottom. Then for the major scale, we're using the A-shaped part of the cage system, and we have two remnant notes at the bottom. Again, we add in this extra note there, the awkward note that we generally leave out when we're drilling. And we've actually got 5 remnant notes at the top. It doesn't quite make it back to the key note there. And 2 remnant notes at the bottom. So that's covered all the detail of doing this drill. But now let's pan out and take a look at the big picture, which hopefully helps us to see how all this fits together. Here we've separated out the 2 scales. In the top diagram you can see how the cage system is superimposed over the blues scale positions to give us the key notes for the minor blues scale. Then in the lower diagram we see the same thing for the major blues scales. And what I hope emerges from this view is how the cage system is simply shifted up one position when we convert from minor to major. Logical to think that going from minor to major is an upwards step. You can also think of it in reverse, that the cage system shifts down a position to move from major to minor. In the next lesson, we'll show you exactly how to drill this to cement these ideas in place. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you'd really like to maximise your potential as a guitar player, click on the link in the description below to the Secret Guitar Teacher site. Here you can sign up for a 30-day trial free of charge and without obligation. We won't even ask you for your credit card number.